Hello and welcome. You're with the Economic Times, and we are back to speak to you about speak on another topic that is critical for business. Welcome to the conversation today. Capillary Technologies present the Economic Times Leadership Dialogue. Today, we'll be focusing on lending the tech edge for CPG consumers. While I welcome you as the viewer, I must also formally welcome my colleague, Nasreen Sultana, based in Mumbai, who will be regularly joining me to co-host the webinars that we bring to you. Nasreen, welcome, and look forward to adding your perspectives to the conversations.
Thanks a lot, Ashu. It's my pleasure to work alongside you. The topic of today's conversation had me thinking a bit because every business is about the data that can be generated and relied upon for further action.
Absolutely, Nasreen, you're absolutely bang on. And that is exactly why everyone from the CPG industry, data analytics and professionals in the consumer-facing industries, and pretty much every business must listen to this conversation. So let me first set the ball rolling with an introduction to the topic, the digital-first consumer. Is the cynosure of all eyes for brands. The metrics of the experiences is one of something that is very critical for data and something critical for companies. And all of them are trying to understand that and also ride on that. As India, as well as Bharat, that's the two parts of India that often is spoken about. So as India and Bharat try and understand what the mobile first consumers are doing, it is clear that a massive opportunity to understand the consumer is emerging, Nasreen.
That's right. And Ashu, it's not just about understanding what the consumer is doing. It is also about the changing preferences, what he's buying, and how his or her entire journey of making the purchase is going about. The rapid expansion of mobile internet presence change or a chance to personalize the experience of consumers. If only brands could put their fingers on the pulse, the online pulse of consumer, that is, to understand what they are doing. Direct-to-consumer brands, or D2C brands as they are popularly called as, in specific segments have shown explosive growth, and traditional consumer product brands need to learn how the traditional companies have met the consumer needs and serviced them.
Okay, over the last 2 to 3 years, the importance of marketing with the use of influencers had also seen a pretty sharp improvement or increase, or that trend has been growing. Yeah. In the context of today's discussion, it's an important element. It allows companies to measure how well a particular campaign with special social media influencers has performed.
Now, compare that with the days of the past, Ashu, where companies had to spread their net far and wide with the television ads and could not be measured the return. What has happened now is, because of the internet, effectively, that makes the effort of companies far more tactical and pincher-like, where they can potentially monitor the pulse of the business.
Exactly. So without further ado, Nasreen, let me introduce the experts who are joining us to talk about this exciting topic, data. That's at the heart of this conversation. So we have Vivek Sharma, Chief Marketing Officer, Pidilite Industries. Ameya Dangi, he's COO at Hygienic Research Institute, or HRIPL. We have Sheena George, Partner Technology Consulting. Sheena George, also joining from EY, and we have others as well. Why don't you introduce them, Nasreen?
In addition, we have Jatinder Singh, Associate Vice President, National Customer Service, Amway, Neeraj Agarwal, Director, Haldiram Foods International, and we have Anish Reddy. He is the founder, ED, and CEO of Capillary Technologies. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Nasreen.
And of course, there's a lady as well, Nasreen. We must keep that in mind. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Now that the formalities of the introduction has been done, let me remind all our viewers to put in their questions for the experts in the Q&A tab. It's important because you want the experts to answer those questions as well. Right now, though, to set the ball rolling, let me request Sheena George from EY to set the context for the conversation we'll have over the next 90 minutes. Sheena, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Ashutosh, and wishing all my fellow panelists and the ET team here a very warm welcome. At the turn of the new year, with hopefully the worst of the pandemic behind us, the CPG industry is faced with the need to quickly transition from responding to the pandemic to recovering and navigating the way forward, which could imply tracking changing consumer preferences, like we heard in the introduction, identifying new micro pockets of growth, adjusting commercial strategies, and becoming more agile to pursue fresh opportunities. So clearly the theme is to rebound and transform to thrive. The first tenet to do that is predicting consumer demand. And like we rightly heard from Ashutosh here, the key is data and analytics have become more critical than ever to accurately forecast demand across product segments. Now let's do a little bit of a deep dive into what that means. Step one could be that we need to base our analytics on the most up-to-date understanding of consumer behaviors, because there is a new comprehension required of the short and long-term impact of changes in consumer behavior post the pandemic. And this could be informed by a mix of consumer sentiment research, proprietary category-specific research, online search, and a variety of digital engagement data, which is coming from the usage of consumer data from a variety of sources. There's a need to harness all these wide ranges of data sources as inputs for fit-for-purpose machine learning techniques, right? So the pandemic has forced companies to aggregate and process more data and data sources than they likely have in the past. And this is coming from, apart from all of the traditional sources, it's coming from new IoT devices, edge devices, mobile and location-based devices, or applications, offline and online data, with dozens of macroeconomic variables, including things like GDP and consumer price index. So consumer sentiment, social listening, search trends, and category-specific data, all of this is augmenting these data sources, which is then leading to creating the right formula for a demand-driven supply chain management, right? So that's the second aspect to the whole data analytics part. And the third aspect to this is translating those insights into scenarios that will help us for the immediate unknown. And there is a little bit of unknown because the degree of change or progression that the pandemic has given in terms of market preferences or consumer sentiment is still being unearthed as we get into it, right? So there is a need to use the data and analytics to explore a range of scenarios and determine the demand elasticity for various categories of products. The outside of the data and analytics piece is the need for a faster idea to product acceleration. In the wake of the pandemic, there can be a need for realigning product portfolios, new innovation strategies coming in, maybe new products coming in, etc. For this to happen, technology plays a key role here because there is a need for bringing those ideas to product in a very accelerated pace, right? To make that happen, that could mean the entire backend of all of this could be, putting things on cloud, bringing things in a DevOps cycle. So there's a faster innovation cycle and a go-to-market pace to offer. And this is needed because the preferences are for affordability, health, hygiene, and packaging is all changing. And there is a need for building full stack innovation capabilities and operating models around this. The pandemic has also accelerated the shift to online channels, as we all know. So omnichannel is a new function to engage with consumers more broadly. And depending on where the CPG company is, there are more and more focusing on more omnichannel experiences and developing new capabilities. you'd have seen, apart from the digital shopping and marketing experiences, there is a rush to get onto the metaverse, and there are many companies going into exploring that space to offer a very different consumer experience. Then there is a whole sentiment around safety and traceability, because there's increasing consumer and regulatory focus on the safety and the ability to trace a product through a supply chain, from the raw goods to the store. And so the tracking of where a material is has become very important. And this is where you will see technologies like IoT, RFD, and a variety of similar initiatives that are tracking or tracing a product, including helping in waste management and reusability where possible. Then there is a sustainability theme that's coming in where there is an increasing consumer demand for transparency on how companies are performing when it comes to sustainability and corporate social responsibility, including publishing carbon emission data. So all of this has brought the industry to a boiling point where there is a need to exploit the commercial and operational potential of technology-driven trends in consumer packaged goods, requiring close cooperation of IT and business leaders and a sharp strategic focus to bring a fast and nimble way of working, and often a new strategic and technical talent requiring to process all of this. Ashutosh, back to you.
Okay. Good. So Nasreen, why don't you start with the question? So now that we have Sheena's input in terms of the context.
Right. As Sheena has rightly said, that last 2 years have been, a 360-degree change of how we approach consumers, how we approach business, because it was an unprecedented event. And I'm sure not a single business was ready to kind of take it. But we have emerged it, and how. So my first question is to Vivek. So how in the last 2 years, how have you approached consumer when Pidilite has to take its message to the consumers?
Thank you, Nasreen, and very warm welcome to the audiences and all my fellow panelists. I think all marketing starts with consumers, right? So we first have to see how they have changed in the last few years. Last few years actually have accelerated many changes in what I call ABC of consumers: attitude, behaviors, and consumption, all three. Now we have to see what actually is remaining with us as we open up. I would highlight 4 key changes that we are observing in consumers, which I believe are likely to stay. First and foremost, much talked about, but nonetheless should be called for, is increasing comfort of consumers with digitization. Whether it is use of digital in search for the products, through search, through various mediums, or through comparisons while they consider the product, listening to influencers, listening to peers, or whether it is purchased through e-commerce or post-purchase. So that, I think, the increasing comfort with digital is here to stay. I think we are moving to a far more mature consumer who is very comfortable using digital. The second big change is channels have changed. As Sheena said, I won't elaborate too much, but all I'll say is that 2 things. One is e-commerce has moved from deals and convenience to now personalization, occasion-based. Consumer is very comfortable now buying household grocery and cow's milk, and as much as they were comfortable buying electronics earlier, right? They're not deal chasers anymore. And within this context, I think consumers' comfort with what I call niche and direct-to-consumer brand, D2C brands, has increased. No longer are they going for only familiar brands. They are going after the real brands, which are offering customized products, let's say in the personal care category, fashion category, holidays, and food as well, organic foods. And I think we are seeing the emergence of that. So that is a big change. The third change is brands are no longer talking to consumers. Consumers are also talking to each other, and far more. We had seen that, but it got accelerated. Now consumer has as much voice in the brand story as much a brand has. So I think brands have to recognize that. And I think the role of influencers Ashutosh spoke about, but I think I'll touch upon a different aspect, that consumers have a far more voice in reputation of the brand, and brands have to listen. They have it. If they are dissatisfied, they talk so much, the opinion gets viral. Equally, if something good happens with the consumer on an airline or with the brand, it gets amplified. So these 4 are the changes Specifically to Pidilite, if I must say, what we have observed is that consumers have become more health conscious. Consumers are doing more things at home. They are doing more DIY. So in pandemic, they were preparing more things at home. So demand for our adhesives and M-Seal and products like Dr. Fixit went up. And there were more searches from consumer as to how to stick this, how to repair this. So we had to actually serve them more content around this. Of course, initially we were not prepared, but we quickly ramped up and we prepared. The second key change we observed from Pidilite portfolio was we have an art and craft range, Fevicryl, Fevistick, Fevicol, and colors and all those things. We saw increasing emergence of need for art and craft amongst mothers, amongst hobby teachers and children, because everyone is stuck at home and they want to do something productive. Mothers wanted to keep their children occupied. We saw a huge demand for art and craft. So we had to quickly ramp up and cater to them by serving them content on art and craft, how to do art and craft, recipes, what products they use, and they're buying more and more from online. And if I must say, a lot of our brands like Fevicol, Dr. Fixit, M-Seal, we also work a lot with contractors, right? We saw that they also changed. They became more comfortable with online medium. We were conducting more and more meets with them, educating them about our products online. They got very, very comfortable. And you'll be surprised, our contractors, carpenter, plumbers, how comfortable they became so quickly with mobile phones. Secondly, we were actually giving them safe site practices, giving them certifications, giving them help to overcome the difficulties in pandemic, like, cash against their accumulated points or insurance and so on and so forth. So we did multiple things, but the core of this is that behavior of people and contractors changed. We had to gear up to change a different content. Brand could no longer talk in a linear way to consumers. So I think we can have further conversation. We have 90 more minutes to go. So I'll stop here. But I think this is a start of an answer to your very wide-ranging question or query.
Sure. Thanks so much for that input. Let's get Amey Dangi into the conversation. Amey, in business, you already have some insight into consumer habits because you're already there. Their habits, tastes, preferences. How has the COVID experience helped you fine-tune that business model so that you could adapt to the new needs, to the new reality?
Thanks, Ashutosh, and good afternoon to all my fellow panelists and the audience. I think one is the fact that the COVID-induced lockdown or the kind of behavior which we saw from consumers has accelerated an already emerging trend, right? Which is the adoption of digital. So even pre-COVID or pre-lockdown, people were adopting to digital. And in a way, what sitting at home forced all of us to do is to adopt it even at a more faster rate. And my industry, which is the beauty and personal care industry, also had its share of the change in behavior, both at a consumer end as well as the customer end, right? And one of the things which we notice happening, in the beauty and personal care industry is that the way content creation used to happen, pre-COVID, and the way it is happening now, right? And you can see that content creation is no longer limited to a few agencies or a few people, right? If you go to the old world, right? If you want to make a fashion statement, you had celebrity influencers, you had those big bloggers. Now you've got what you call influencers in every nook and corner, right? Every town, every locality has its own influencers, and you've got micro influencers. I hear there are nano influencers as well. So the way the influencers are shaping the fashion and beauty ecosystem, right? It is what I think Vivek also alluded to, right? Consumers are participating in the brand's journey. They are shaping the fashion and beauty say for the brands. And as a company, right, we don't no longer have a program where we kind of engage with influencers on a periodic basis. We have an ongoing program. So wherever we see opportunity to engage with them on all of our fashion and beauty statements, all our products, and not just one type of influencers, right? We've got celebrity influencers. We've got a Shah Rukh Khan, who's our brand ambassador. we've got a micro influencers, we've got moms who want to make a fashion statement, who want to walk the ramp, right? So you can see that the whole digital environment is so ripe for content, and it's clearly shaping the change the way of fashion industry is moving, right? A lot of these influencers are helping us or telling us what consumers want to look out like, as you alluded to the pandemic, right? So while people were at home, they didn't want to forego pleasures, right? So they wanted to do stuff at home. They wanted to have their maybe Zoom parties or whatever. So there was an opportunity to dress up. So we saw a lot of rise in the DIY kits. Some of our new products kind of moved up in that sense. Now when we see the rebound happening, we see as the same consumers go back to the salons and and groom with the latest fashion. So we are clearly seeing both kinds of consumers happening, and really the pandemic and the digital is helping us shape both the fashion and beauty trends, as well as participating in what we want, what we want them to kind of create with us. So if you see, a lot of our looks, a lot of our things which we bring to the table are co-created with the influencers, with our consumers. And I think that's one big shift which I have seen, right? Where brands used to call out that this is the latest fashion or this is the latest trend. Here you now have to kind of co-create and co-own and kind of build on that. So I think that's a very strong shift for us in both our salon division, not just consumer, right? We've got hairstylists and salon people, right, who are also creating the looks, and these are not just celebrity stylists. They are next door salons who are participating in our making a fashion statement, and this has helped us grow our products. It's not just limited to engagement, because there are a lot of new products like a fashion highlight segments or post care products which have kind of nicely got integrated into the consumer's life, right, and the salon life. So clearly this shift which we see, where our customers and consumers are participating in creating the future of fashion and beauty, that's got accentuated for us, definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
We not only had Zoom parties, we had weddings on Zoom,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that added up to the salon requirements, the feel of the FOMO, where you don't want to miss out on looking good, even if you are sitting at home and you are attending a party. So from salon and hair care, let's move on to the food business. Neeraj, I want to get in a question with you. Is how have you gone about realigning the product portfolio during the pandemic period? Has the way you work, has it changed given the data inputs have changed from a pre-pandemic period to a period where people were mostly at homes during lockdown? Neeraj?
Yeah. Thank you, Nasreen, for this opportunity, and thank you, ET, for giving this opportunity to talk on this topic. So, as you mentioned that during this last 2-3 years, during this pandemic time, we really saw a lot of shift in the kind of offering that people used to take, and also the kind of package that people used to prefer. So, if I talk about the size of the pack, that has drastically changed during this time. So before, the consumption was, say, 80%, we used to sell our 5-10 rupees pack, if I talk about snacks. But during this 2 years, we saw that drastic shift from that smaller pack to a family pack of 200 grams, 400 grams, 1 kg. So we drastically saw that turnaround. It could be because a lot of people were at home, sitting with their family and watching OTT and other television. So they all reunited during this 2 years. So I wouldn't say that this was definitely a difficult time, but it also gave companies and also gave family that opportunity to evolve themselves, to give themselves that sweet time, and understand what are their actual needs. And uh, like, if I talk about this 2 years, how we have evolved as a Haldiram brand is we came up with a lot of DIY kits. So you'll be surprised to know that we had a DIY Rasmalai kit, wherein you can take a bigger pack of 1 kg rasmalai, and you can, we give you a separate milk and, the chena base, and then you create your own milk with your own garnish and all. So that was a very, nice product. And we did a lot of multi hampers of namkeen when people wanted to try more, variety, since they were at home and, they had that leisure, they had that time. So we came up with a lot of customized hampers wherein people could choose, say, 15, 20 variety of different products. Like we have around 500 plus SKUs. So people wanted to try those SKUs, since general trade never used or got that opportunity to keep all of them. So we got a very good response on our e-commerce portal also, where you mentioned that, the D2C market has also evolved a lot. So we saw a lot of new players, a lot of new snacking company who started selling online, and we also got a lot of demand from our own customers saying that, we want to see your complete range, we want to buy your products, and, some of them are not available in modern trade, some of them are not available near their stores. So such things have helped us also evolve in a much greater way and understand our customer.
So Neeraj,
And
just wanted to
how,
understand, sorry to come in, just want to understand what kind of data inputs went into making some of these products, some of these SKUs and the variants that you introduced?
so basically, we started getting data when we started selling more e-commerce, more D2C. So we could get data from all source, from all our customers, from all region. We got to know which region were doing, what were the favorite products that every region had. So all those data really helped us customize the product very well, is what I would say.
Okay, very interesting. That kind of input was coming from the data as well. Jatinder Singh, direct selling companies, their business has shot up during this pandemic. Can you share how has this panned out and what were the lessons, please?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ashutosh. So for us, I remember it was 2020 March when suddenly lockdown hit us, right? Everything stopped. Our offices were shut down, our call centers were closed. There was no way for people to reach out to us, right? So the first thing we had to do immediately was how would we reach to our customers? No, there was no way for them to come. In our business, it's more physical touch and feel business, and not so much digital. Obviously, over the years, the last 2 years, it's moved to digital now, but primarily it was physical office based where people would come, touch and feel the products, talk about the benefits of the products and then buy, because there was some uniqueness in the way we were selling products. So I think the first change that we saw was that instead of people coming, we had to reach out to people to figure out what they wanted, because we were not getting that feedback initially because offices were closed. So that is when we started, a lot of communication, where we started kind of calling people, talking to them, doing surveys in terms of what they want, because we wanted to create that pull. So I think that's how the change for us started there. And secondly, Amway is primarily a health and beauty company. Okay. Unfortunately or fortunately, pandemic was all about health, right? And suddenly the awareness of health, kind of skyrocketed. So it was not so much about treating an illness; it was all about being healthy. Okay, that is why you saw products like Patanjali, Amway, the demand really shot up, and a lot of Indian products were being sought after, because people did not know what is going to work. They were trying different medicines, homeopathic, allopathic. Amway had a herbal range, right? And there was a lot of demand for local indigenous Indian products. So I think that demand really shot up for us, because people wanted to, look at now health as something that was part of their life and not only once they fell ill. So more than being reactive and going to a doctor after falling ill, they wanted to kind of try supplements so that they could remain healthy. And this pandemic didn't touch us. I think that was something that kind of worked in our favor, and we obviously built on that. So that's what my take on this would be in terms of really shooting up.
Right. So Anish, if I have to ask you, what are the new consumer trends in the CPG industry, particularly that you have observed, and the behavior shift that we have seen, particularly in the last 2 years? Because as I mentioned earlier, nobody was really geared up for such a change.
Right. No, Nasreen, I think like everyone on the panel mentioned, and it's great to have an esteemed panel. And I think the big change has been digital suddenly got real.
Yeah.
Right. Till then, I think it was a boardroom conversation. It was okay, this year's budgets are not there. Let's do it next year, or we'll think about it. So I think and once you put everyone at their homes and said all you can do is watch TV or your phones. I think digital suddenly became real, right? So I think that's and for business and for consumers as well, right? So, and that I think led to 3-4 things, right? So one, I think the way content got consumed, I think through through the last 2 years has been phenomenal, right? I mean, content generation and consumption. And whether it's influencers, whether it is people searching for content to get there. The second has also been as I think, it's very interesting to see my mom, who's 64, 65-year-old, spending a significant time of hers on WhatsApp, reading stuff now, and making payments with a phone pay. I would have not imagined that, right? So I would have really not imagined that. So I think the last 2 years, if you ask me, the big trend has been COVID has taught all of us how to live in a digital world, right? So in very simple terms, right? So irrespective of your age group, are you a consumer? Are you a kid? Are you a mother? Are you a distributor? Are you a contractor? I mean, it equalized everyone. Everyone now knows how to, consume content well, make payments well, and probably do a little bit of commerce online, right? So I mean, that's been one big change if you ask me, Nasreen. And second has been, at least we've seen a lot of switch from spends going from ATL or TV to, it's been very interesting, right? Startups are suddenly spending on IPL and TV, and traditional brands are suddenly moving to saying, look, we will spend on influencers and we will spend on digital, right? So in that sense, it's been an interesting switch. I think what brands have done very well, if you ask me, is follow what consumers want. I think that part has been good. And the fact is, 2 years is a permanent change, right? So it's not, if 21 days is what you need to make a habit, 21 months is, you've probably made a significant change. Now, what I'm not meaning is that people are not going back to the offline world, but digital is here to stay, and digital has its own advantages, right? Earlier, as a lot of brand leaders, I'm sure we had to hide behind a small retailer and take feedback from them but today you can get that feedback straight from the consumer or straight from the buyer, right? So lot more richer data. I think engagement has improved significantly. Like if it would take us, 5 years to get to 1 million downloads on an app, you can get to 1 million downloads on a app in like 6 months now, right? So once you have that data on each individual, what are their preferences? That's a gold mine, right? I mean, we've actually, for the first time, started seeing, Facebook ads, Google ads, etc., things like that, being ROI positive, as compared to, so you don't need to wait for 2 years to recover the cost of customer acquisition. You could do a little faster, right? So those have been some interesting changes, I think, over the last couple of years, right? So, yeah. Asha, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, now I can hear. Neeraj, before you go, I understand you have something very urgent to attend to, so you have to rush.
Yeah.
But one more question, please, if I can squeeze. And what Anish referred to, the changes, some may be permanent, some may not be that permanent. How are you seeing what changes could be permanent, the changes that have happened over the last 2 years, and some which may be phased out over a period of time?
Changes that could be permanent could be the buying habit of people. So the way now they look after a product has changed. Now they really look after more healthier options. it could be because of the time they got, because of the habits, they had time for themselves. So they started working on their own self. Like before the pandemic, you were too busy working day and night. But when you got that time, you really thought of giving yourself that time. And now people don't want to let that thing go. So they are really looking for healthier options, is one thing that is going to stay. And that's how even we are continuously doing a lot of R&D, and I'm sure other companies are also looking into introducing better products which has more health benefits. So I think that is something which will really evolve and really take the customers preference ahead. So consumers are really now talking to the brand as to what they want. Now they are very vocal towards what they like, what they don't like, with their reviews, with their comments, with social media. And brands are also understanding and reacting to it very fast. It's not that people are just writing their reviews and brand is busy manufacturing. It's not that anymore. You react to the reviews, you react to their comments very fast.
Okay.
And
okay.
that's how connected I think the brand and the consumer are going to be in future.
The connected, that's very interesting, the term that you've connected with the brand. That's what consumers need. As we'll let you go. Thank you indeed for taking out the time to be. I know it's something very urgent that you have to attend to.
Yeah.
Thanks for being
Thank
with
you.
us.
Yeah, sorry for not being there the whole time, but yeah, I have some urgent work. But thank you so much for having me, and it was lovely talking to all of you, and it was very insightful. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll definitely continue the conversation. And Jatinder, while you've been quietly listening, you raised your hand, so we'll come to you. Jatinder, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to build on what Anish said about digital being real. Suddenly, companies understood the need of going digital. We started getting, so I'm from a customer services function. Typically, it's looked at as a cost center, and we are the last people to get monies. But suddenly, over the last 2 years, there was a flow of money towards us to create more digital tools. If I were to look at last 2 years, we were able to create a self-help tool. We were able to launch our chatbot. We were able to even launch our own search engine within Amway. So I think the focus, and again, building on what Eddie said, it is real. It is here to stay. And the only thing we have to look at now is that there were some habits that got developed over the last 2 years. But as we stand on the cusp of moving out of that pandemic, how much of those habits will remain and how many will fall apart? So what we have seen as a trend is that people still want to come back to the office. So as our offices started opening, we started seeing a higher footfall. However, the tendency of paying cash has reduced. So people have caught on to the digital mode of payment. So while they come to the office, they still want to use a Paytm or a credit card as against carrying cash. So I think that's a change that we have seen. Another change that we've seen is that pre-pandemic, people were either on this side or that side. I think now people have learned the hybrid mode. Okay. So people have adapted digital. They understand the benefits of digital, but they also want that touch and feel. So I think both are going along. But like I said, we are still confused as companies. We don't know how much of that change is going to be permanent and how much of that will change. I think the next 6 to 8 months will be critical for us to understand, because I know some companies have given away offices, some companies have shut down shops and totally moved digital, where I see crowds moving back to markets. So will those companies start investing back in physical? We don't know. So it's an early stage of that decision making. So maybe another 6 to 8 months will be critical for us to know, as we see more data around how many people are still going to digital, how many people. But one thing is for sure, it is going to be a hybrid world and not either or.
Right.
Just to add to what Jatinder said, I think if you take October, November, December, as a no COVID period, right? I mean, again, this quarter is a little bit of COVID. I think almost all retailers had their best quarter ever, and even compared to pre-COVID, right? So I don't think there's any question of people not going back. I think I think whatever people feel convenient, I think is, as human beings, we tend to do the least frictious thing, right? So whatever leads to least friction in life is what we'll end up doing. And I do think retail and online, the whole omni world is how it's going to be, I guess. Yeah.
Right. So Anish, just adding to what you said, that last quarter probably was a good quarter, but do you think it is because also about the festive time that we had? And there's one, what economists call it as a revenge buying. You may have delayed buying a fridge, or maybe you have delayed buying new appliances for your kitchen, and which you are buying right now because you know that you would be going to be probably using them more often. So do you think it's a revenge buying? People went out on holidays and last quarter, right? Do you think that is going to, continue even if the COVID numbers increase?
Right. So I think OND is always the festival quarter, right? I mean, October, November, December is always the festival quarter. So I think that seasonality would always be there. So if it's higher than, even 2 years before, then I think it's not festive for sure, right? Being the reason for the highest. I do think there's an amount of revenge shopping, right? I mean, I think it was the first festive after at least a year where you could really go travel home, meet people, so some of that. I think it'll be brand wise, Nasreen. I do think it's very interesting to see brands like Wow Signs get to like 500 crores ish of revenues, right? I mean the amount of time it would have taken Head and Shoulders or a Pantene or any of them, these guys have taken like a fraction of it to get that far, right? So and I do feel some of those, right, which is the consumer has, I think it's gone two ways. The inflation has meant, some people have gone down, some people have gone up. So they might stay there. I don't know. More time will tell whether it is just revenge shopping or whether it's permanent switch of preferences. Like I suddenly see a Wow Signs thing in my home regularly now. We were a Heads and Shoulders customer earlier, right? So there is probably a switch there. Yeah.
So I hope they're listening. The Heads and Shoulder brand team is listening. How that could happen. Vivek Sharma, because of what you mentioned, the way you switched and you engage with the customers and the stakeholders for various brands of Pidilite, how can customer behavior, how can the stakeholder behavior be changed with the communication and the data it generates?
Yeah, so I think we spoke a lot about, Jahinder spoke a lot about, and rightly so, that it's going to be a phygital world. It's not an either or situation for consumer product companies. I think it will be worthwhile for us to take a step back and see what it means for marketeers and what do we need to do in our marketing and within our organizations to actually take care of that. And let me illustrate this with Dr. Fixit. Dr. Fixit is a consumer brand for waterproofing, for those who don't know. And it can be used for household waterproofing as well as big structural waterproofing. Now, what we observed was that consumer has become more digital and they're getting more education about waterproofing needs online. They are searching more for specific needs for waterproofing, walls as different from roof, new construction is different from repair, so on and so forth. So that was the digital part, and we actually actively upped our game in performance marketing. I think what Anish also alluded to, but it is more actively done. It got ramped up in COVID times, is using good data experience platforms and good CRM engine to connect, draw up a funnel of consumers and to make sure that we don't lose them. Then that's not something you can do only physically. If you have good digital tools like a good DXP, which good CRM, good call center, and that so that we can nurture a consumer, don't lose the consumer. Even if consumer has not responded to you or has gone away, you can always track the consumer. What we did was that not only we had to up our technology quotient in brand interaction with consumers, whether it's through updated dialers, updated call centers, updated DXP platforms, updated lead generation tools, updated lead nurturing tools. But at the same time, what interesting, Ashutosh, was that we had to equally update our physical infrastructure to match with this, which means Digitally, we linked all our Salesforce territories to this performance marketing platform. So a consumer query got linked to a PIN code, the right person was assigned the query. When he visited the customer, we tracked what happened at the household. We tracked when waterproofing happened. We tracked what happened post waterproofing, etc., etc. And it was also linked to expert contractors being made available to consumer through a dealer network, preferred dealer network. The point I'm trying to make, and this is valid for a lot of service brands as well as other product brand, is that it is necessary to balance the physical and the digital world for marketeers. It needs as much engineering of the digital quotient in the marketing world, as much as actually making sure your offline touch points of consumer, whether it's a retail shop, whether it's your salesman, whether it's your contractor, whether it's your on-site visit mechanism, it works equally well. Otherwise, the full customer experience doesn't happen. I think, and that is the crux of marketing post-COVID times. And second only point I would like to add is the machine gun approach of earlier either or digital is going to go away. Consumer has experienced and tasted various advantages and perils of digital marketing. They have tasted so much of content, they have tasted choice. So consumer post-COVID is going to be very, very choosy and choose for what brand of product or need on what time of the day. They will go physical, they'll walk to a shop. And for what product or service consumption, they will go online. They will decide. The same grocery can be bought by housewives late in the evening online, but in the daytime she can walk to a store because you want to buy fresher stuff. Okay. The same milk can be ordered through a cow milk, can be ordered through an organic farm digitally, but something can be ordered off the shelf also. The point I'm making is brands have to become far more nuanced and use data and analytics to decide how to actually then cater to those consumers' behavioral changes. And just to underline and not to repeat, there are three things we are observing which we can't get away from post-pandemic. A, consumer is becoming more value conscious. So brands using digital or non-digital have to innovate better into lower pack sizes. They have to listen, they have to observe and do things. Second is they're becoming more health conscious. So you have to innovate faster, something which Sheena spoke about, and I think I can relate to it. You have to actually innovate faster. This is the need. And third thing is consumer is listening more to influencers and the fellow consumers and opinion makers than brand advertising alone. I'm not saying that is gone. So for example, we also have Mr. Amitabh Bachchan as our brand ambassador, but we equally engage with leading architects, leading civil engineers to actually talk about waterproofing. We also engage with, you may not know them, but there are many, many hobby teachers who are very famous in the cities, in their districts. We engage with them and they talk about the art and craft and our products. So I think going forward, marketeers have to be more nuanced. The machine gun approach is gone. Second is within marketing organization, they have to be more comfortable with technology. And that will bring me to other topic which we can discuss, is that the digital knowledge quotient of marketeer has to increase. The talent has to be brought in. Without it, marketing can't happen in digital area. Even we often seem to ignore it. Especially for senior marketeers, we have to unlearn and learn. And I'm in that bucket and I've been doing a lot of that myself. So I think this is exciting times ahead, but at the same time, it's not going to be very, very easy and linear. I would say we have come to a linear world.
Right. Vivek almost preempted my question, actually. And, before I, throw the question to Sheena, I want to come to, Amey and, bring you to the conversation. This entire, dialogue is not about D2C brands versus the FMCG brand or a personal care brand in your case. This is about getting smarter, how you get, insightful conversation within the consumers. So I know as legacy, players, how do they get data into bringing more consumer into this conversation and taking the brand loyalty forward?
I think, thanks, Nasreen. I think the D2C and CPG players, right? Traditional CPG players, like you rightly said, it's about the consumer. Both are trying to understand the consumer and woo the consumer. D2C players are digital first companies. They understand digital better than traditional CPG players like us, right? We are adopting digital tools, but they don't have the, or they right now don't necessarily have the brand building skills which a PNG, right, might have. So how can, if you are able to find the sweet spot, you are able to woo your consumer and ensure that you can keep her loyalty. And I'm just referring to what Anish mentioned, right? Wow came in and Head and Shoulders went out. We've been able to do a little bit of a reverse. We've been able to get a lot of our new products in, right? And the reason why we've been able to do that is because of the growth of online commerce. And like somebody was saying, right? It just got accentuated by people being able to pay conveniently. The delivery ecosystem for online commerce is very well developed. I mean, most pin codes, and thanks to Amazon and Flipkart's, most pin codes are getting serviced. I no longer need to rely on my neighborhood cosmetic shop for Mera Wala shade, as we call it, right? And I want to get my hair color or my shade, I can go online and buy, right? So it's very, very, the fact that there was a whole ecosystem for online commerce helped us seed in new products. And some of our categories like the hair highlighting kit or the hair care serums, they flourished because of the fact that consumers or people have adopted to buying online. That's one of the trends which I think is here to stay, right? And it's not going to go away. So in fact, if I look now, I think around 10% of the online businesses is FMCG, right? Which never used to be, and people were struggling to do that. So it's clearly a huge opportunity for whether you call us D2C or you call us traditional CPG. We are all consumer companies, right? Consumer at the center, and whether you take the digital route to woo them or you take the physical route to woo them, right? You need to understand her behavior much better, right? So as to be able to talk to them in their language and be able to get the kind of product she wants, right? We've been able to develop a whole innovation pipeline because of the kind of feedback which we got, right? Whether it's through our customers, online customers, whether through the kind of listening which we do socially, with the kind of this feedback which we get through our social media platforms, or the kind of interaction we have with our groups, local groups. So all that feed into our innovation pipeline, which helps us design the products for the future, what she wants, as well as able to solve that in a very, very effective and efficient way through online commerce. So I think I think business online will continue, although the kind of business we are in, right? We would love people to go out because grooming is all about meeting people, right? If you're going to meet people, you better be well groomed. So I think we are happy that people start going out, and we are also equally happy that they are buying online, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So I think the concept of a D2C or a consumer goods might blur in the future. Like you already see a lot of the Wow, Mama Earth stocks go into the physical world, right? You've got Nykaa setting up stores offline, which means that for the D2C players to scale up, they need the physical world, they need the touch and feel, which I think Jatinder and Vivek were alluding to. So it's in some way either faster or nearer, I don't know, but those lines will blur going forward.
Okay, Jatinder. Sorry, so Jatinder's raised hand. Jatinder, we'll just come to you. Sheena, I wanted to put this question to Sheena, where Sheena, the consumers love the idea, traditionally always loved the idea of the touch and feel. So will the consumer go back to that touch and feel habit while adding the digital element, while executing a purchase decision?
Great question, Ashutosh. Incidentally, last week, I was in the Silicon Valley for a program that Ernst & Young organized. And we had a lot of these people talking about future of manufacturing, future of CPG, future of innovation, and all of these great topics. Okay, and we had professors from Stanford and a lot of these industry leaders come and talk to us. And their view and perspective to this very specific question, Ashutosh, is that the touch and feel element is slowly going to fade away because they're talking metaverse, they're talking more and more digital, they're talking more simulation of real world experiences where you actually simulate taste, you actually simulate smell. There's lots of innovation that's happening out there. Okay, so that's the trend which they are talking about. But let's zoom in and talk about our country. And I think there's a divide here. There's one, the rural population, large one to cater. And then there's all of us, urban, who have been used to a very digital world and slowly coming back to office, like that touch and feel experience again, right? So India, I think that personal touch will, at least my view, will stay for a while, Ashutosh, and will be needed. Like we heard Amaya talk about all of this, Nika and all of this. I mean, yes, it's. I have done a lot of online shopping like never before, and Nasreen and maybe Nidhi and some of the ladies here will agree with me. Unlike a male shirt, which wear a size 38, 40, 42, is like you kind of know what you're getting. For the females, it's very different. A small in one brand is equal to medium in another brand, equal to large in another brand. There's just no uniformity at all. And we've always liked to try on our clothes before we make a purchase. But we've done a lot of digital shopping now. Returns are easy. So we are kind of accommodating it. But still, if you ask me a shoe or dress, we like to do the touch and feel, and I think that's really going to stay for a while. But if you see, basis some of the consumer trends and desires that's shaping up from surveys that's happening more in our subcontinent, 81% like the personalized offers and promotions, right? And the degree of personalization, personalized offers and promotions that can come in an online experience far supersedes today than what we are getting in a more touch and feel. That's the reality. Like the moment I buy a dress, an online platform can tell me what about a belt, what about a shoe, what about a matching something else, and 10 other things, right? I might end up shopping a lot more than I walk into one store and just buy a dress, right? So that degree of personalization in a digital platform is outstanding. It's not going to go away. But at the same time, I think that in-store shopping experience for some products is here to stay. But that's my view, Ashutosh.
Tina, I'm so glad you brought about the personalization concept that, for females especially, it's so important to, at least your size, the touch and feel about the color and quality is fine, but the size, of course, matters. And for a lot of brands, European size and Indian size, and that really matters. Okay, moving on. Let's get Jatinder what he had to speak, because I think he raised his hand.
So just a couple of quick points, and just to answer to Sheena, more on a lighter note. And when men go to buy a shirt, we want to buy a shirt. But if a woman goes to buy a shirt, it can be a top, a crop top, a slick top, a long top, a short. I don't know how many of those. Yeah, so it's not.
There is one shopping with his wife a lot of times. Looks like.
Oh yes, and talking about my wife. Okay, I think those. It also is that my wife is a big Zara fan. Like most women, and then. For those 2 years, she had been shopping online. But the first possible occasion or the opportunity she got, she ran to the store where she could touch and feel and buy. I don't know how much of AI can give you that feel of a cloth. And then that's more on a lighter note. But I think one more point I wanted to make was that while we are talking about consumers being hybrid, what I have seen, and I stay in a typical colony, a Delhi typical colony with small shops, that small kirana shop also. The way I've seen them innovate is phenomenal. Now, we used to go to a shop. It's a standalone shop with a guy, right? And I was surprised about, I think it was about a year and a half. I went to that shop. The guy asked me, "Sir, aap kis platform pe hai?" And I was surprised. I didn't understand what he meant by platform. He says, "Sir, do you use Insta or WhatsApp? Which one do you use more often?" I said, "I use both." So he said, "Sir, I have made an Insta account." Now, this is a guy who probably didn't even have a smartphone before that. So this guy made an Insta account, gave me his ID, made sure I followed him, and from the next day started posting pictures of products that were on discount in his shop every day, and would change it every day for me to see and buy. He hired a small boy to deliver. Now, he is a competitor to Amazon, not Amazon, but he is showing me what he has on offering every day. And he would change that every day, allow me to call him on the phone, and he would deliver the product with a slip saying that here is the purchase, you pay me the money. So he has used everything that a digital big player would use by using a digital platform to showcase his products and also allowing me to pay him through digital means. I don't know if that's a right fit to but I'm saying this is how people are innovating.
But I think perfect question for Anish to step in. Anish, because one was the personalization element and the challenges it presents before companies and brands which want to reach out, and the other using these various little digital interventions, if I can say so. How does a company look to ride such small interventions from the remoter suppliers in smaller places?
Got it. So I think data is at the core of all this, right, Ashutosh? So if you're able to get good data in the offline world or the online world, you can always personalize well. It's as simple as that, right? So, I mean, the whole concept of personal shoppers in a shopper stop or have been there forever, right? I mean, and if you're a very high value customer, they'll allot someone to you and you can call them up like, and this is, I'm talking 8 years ago or 9 years ago, right? So I think that's moved to a much more seamless digital world where the AI throws up saying, look, for Nasreen, this is what she should, probably like, and this is what will go with it and stuff like that. I think the general trend, at least we're seeing, Ashutosh, is anything high value, anything high fashion, I think will probably continue to be offline heavy, because you want to touch and feel, you want to be sure it fits you well, etc. And a lot of, like casual type stuff where you just, wear it for work or wear it for, I think all that moves to like, offline, right? So I think that's going to be the divide. The other piece I was going to add to what Amaya was saying, we've seen incredible success for offline brands trying to grow online in the last 2 years. Because the recollection for the consumer is just so high. We took Indian Terrain, they have 400 offline stores or 200 offline stores, something like that. We took them online and we were surprised. Month 1, the site was profitable. At significant scale, right? At pandemic time, and this is their own website. This is not, and if you look at Myntra and Amazon and stuff, they sell discounted stuff, right? I mean, these are largely discount types, right? But suddenly their own .com, you could see full price selling, and you're profitable from day one, right? I mean, like month 1 almost, right? So, so we definitely seeing that, right? So I think if you have a strong brand and you just switching channels, your cost of acquiring a customer will probably be half of what, an unknown brand will take, right? So that switch is happening, and I don't see why for any offline brand today or any traditional brand today, like 10% of their sales shouldn't come from their own .coms, right? In a profitable, similar margin profile as the offline world, right? So, but again, I think using data well, like I can talk about a few more brands, like, it's not only touch and feel. I think it's also access to the product, right? So when I look at the Biba e-commerce runs in us as well, and it's amazing. I think they sell more Rohit Bal in tier 3, tier 4 cities on their online site than in tier 1. And the answer is simple, right? It's access. When you don't have a Biba store in like a tier 3, tier 4. So, and that lady sitting in, I don't know, like, not getting names now, but in a tier 3 city also wants to buy that, right? So, so I think with this, work from home and a lot of people moving back to a lot of the IT crowd, like when COVID came, we realized our employees were sitting in 65 cities and towns and villages in India, right? And this is people who are getting well paid in Bangalore, and then now they're suddenly sitting in I don't know where, right? And she would want to order the same stuff that she was going to a store and buy, right? So I think there's a lot of this stuff happening. I do think data is still at the center of it. If you have good data, collect good data, AI is like super cheap now. Analytics is super cheap now. You can personalize, you can customize, and that's probably the way to go.
Right, a lot of relevant insight, Anish. I want to come to Sheena now, and I want to ask you actually. See, during we've been talking about that there's a lot of consumer shift in both in experience and the way the consumer is behaving on the online, shopping. But do you think what part of this experience is going to be permanent? Because right now the economies are opening up, especially in India. Most people are also going out, going to theaters, going to even shopping, to going to malls, even though the same product probably was available online, going out for more parties than they were earlier probably. So there is a shift from suddenly from a digital experience, they want to experience the physical world. So what do you think, what experience or what segment of the experience would become permanent after the pandemic?
Yeah, thanks, Nasreen. And I think some of the panelists answered that question to some extent, and I agree with their views as well. At least for most of us in the urban population, things which one doesn't need to see, feel, and experience. There's lots of the usual run-of-the-mill things, right? We would prefer not to have to go to a store and buy. I think if it can be bought online, I think that will be a trend that will continue to stay. Second thing, I think, is buying sustainable products. And I think Amaya referred to this. Most of us want to, buy products which are sustainable, products which have no chemicals. I mean, because of all the content that's coming, right? We've learned a lot. We've learned not to look at what's there in the front of the bottle. We've learned to read what is at the back of the bottle. Now we know what those ingredients mean. Oh, this is parabens. Oh, this is sulfates. This is whatever, right? So we don't want that. We've been over-educated now. So I think those buying sustainable, good products, organic products, I think some of these trends will sustain. And I think that's the area where all of the innovation should go. And Indian brands are starting to do really well in some of these places. Some brands which I used to buy abroad, I think some new Indian startups and brands that are coming are really nailing it. And I think we should do better than global brands in that space.
Okay, so that interestingly also this sustainability issue, Vivek, that gets me to the next question. In terms of the back-end changes, that of course that will need to be done because you need to align your systems to the new way of working. What other challenges could marketers face in terms of, one, reaching out to the consumer, and how could that story pan out for the larger set of brands and their offering to consumers?
There are multiple challenges we can face as we traverse this digital journey. Okay. The first is not really capturing and using data well, and actually having either talent or the right analytics tool within the organization to use the data, because that I think is the biggest challenge. And it's not just for the head of the marketing to know about it. It is for right down to every level of the organization has to use the data. And we have to automate those parts of marketing using AI, which can be automated. Otherwise, your time of the organization is getting wasted. So that is, I think, the biggest challenge. And let me illustrate this with example. So for example, if I have lakhs of contractors, they're buying my products, and I know what they're buying as they're scanning my QR codes, as they're using my products. Now we analyze this data, and based upon this data, we have segments of contractors. Who is using what kind of product? People who are using level 1 product, we give them level 2 product education, and level 2 gets level 3 education. They all get differential messages and marketing messages as per their behavior, and it is all automated. And those messages are sent to them on the social media through a CRM engine and DXP engine. So, which is all automated, which means that the time of the marketing team is now freed up to do far value addition work. So that is the first thing, which is first challenge is that collect the right data and use analytics to create the insights and automate the what I call wasteful marketing. That is one. The second challenge is actually being able to pierce consumer bubbles. And this is a very interesting phenomena we must recognize as a marketer. You have Apple phones. Apple phones now ask you whether you want this app to track your data or not. You opt to go into groups. You have algorithms of social media platform which allow you to create your own echo chamber, so to say. Okay. There are data privacy. You can have ad blockers, which means that each consumer is creating its own bubble. How do you penetrate that? So consumers, we are going to move a lot more where consumer will have opt-in choices. What they want to hear, what they want to listen, what they want to read. And marketers have to recognize that it's a challenge because you can no longer create a uniform message and then, beam it or broadcast it. We have to move, as I said in the beginning, from reach to engagement model. We have to actually see, am I creating a conversation, either myself or through influencers or through my user generated content or consumer to consumer, which they are interested in? Or can I participate in their conversation with my brand without being too forceful? So that is the second thing. We have to actually move to that model. The third challenge is actually, as I said, the biggest challenge is that we shouldn't generalize, because even when we discuss, we generalizing so much. Actually, let me give an example. Let me pick up the example we discussed 5 minutes ago. All men buying Senate office shirts are not standardized. Okay. And all men buying wedding suits are not looking for touch and feel experience. Okay. It depends upon three things. As Anish rightly said, access. So maybe a person in tier 3, tier 4 town will definitely go online because he doesn't have access to, let's say, a high-end shirt. The other two factors are actually what I call the risk that product plays in their life, right? Right. So for someone who is buying a shirt for an interview for the first time, he would definitely want to go to a shop and select personally. He will not buy mostly online, mostly. And I can't even generalize for all people like that. So the point I'm making is, similarly, second factor is standardization of experiences. If I can predict my experience of a mobile phone after having thousands of people having used it, let's say an Apple or any brand or a Motorola or whatever, Xiaomi, Viva, I'm going to purchase it online blindly. But if I'm buying something for which the experience is not so well known and predictable, I would like to experience it offline also. Take a car. We have seen all high-end cars giving you digital experience of the cockpits, etc. If I'm buying a car at consideration stage, I will go to digital experience, use their augmented reality, use their virtual realities, and shortlist. But ultimately, for the top two cars which I've shortlisted, I go to a showroom, okay, or a motorcycle. Similarly, a person who's buying an Enfield would definitely like to go and physically experience it. The point I'm making is we can't generalize. So marketeers were taught, actually are still taught in institutes, to segment and assume that all segment behaves the same. And digital is actually busting this myth.
Yeah.
And we have to use technology. And as Anish said, if you have data, we don't have to do research anymore. We have to observe the behavior, connect 3 data points and say, this consumer is like this. I'm going to offer him online experience. AR, he's like that. He will behave online. I can connect other 4 dots and say, this customer I have seen will often like to go to my showroom. Then I offer him perhaps an incentive to go to my showroom, a coupon or something. I'm saying, I think data offers marketers excellent opportunity to pinpoint and target. And that shift in the mind from moving from mass marketing to pinpoint marketing is not easy to traverse. And that's one of the biggest challenges, Ashutosh. As in CPG, we move from what I call, age pre-COVID marketing to post-COVID marketing, which is hybrid.
Okay.
I've said a lot. Maybe I have confused, but I think the key thing is shift from mass to pinpoint marketing using data. And that is the biggest challenge, if I can summarize.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of what the consumers want as well, right? I want to throw one small example here. So for many years we've been running these emailers for brands that, food, a food pizza brand, very popular. And we would send 3 offers in the email, and then we recently started sending 1 offer in the email. Guess which one has a higher hit rate? The 3 offers put together or the single one? The single one obviously is not, the same one doesn't go to everyone. It's like very, much more targeted. And, we were surprised. I think the single one actually has like a 2x better hit rate than giving the consumer a choice of 3, and which we all thought was, like how we've seen for many years now, right? So, but the consumer wants ki, haan, matlab, ye mein kuch chamka, I will take this. So they want information overload and then decision fatigue and all that stuff, right?
So Ashutosh, other challenge I forgot to mention is very important, and it is said before, but I'll again say it. Our ability to have data sanctity and privacy will be one of the biggest challenges as we move to this way of marketing. What I mean by this is we have to ensure that marketers have a lot of data themselves in the organization, their own distributor data, retailer data, their own scan data, but still have to use it to target my consumer on the social media platforms. So we need data sanctity and data encryption so that my data sanctity is maintained at my end. So I think technology is available, but I think we have to grapple with that. Secondly, equally respecting consumer privacy and data privacy norms and regulations as they come in. And that is going to be a challenge. And Anish can tell us as it becomes a cookieless world, there are going to be more challenges coming our way. So exciting, but challenging times. And we have to learn and unlearn. So cookieless world, perhaps you can talk about, Anish, that we can all learn from you on this.
Yeah, no, I can spend in fact, what we're seeing as a trend, Vivek, Ashutosh, and I'm sure you're also seeing this, is a lot of consumer brands saying, look, we want end consumer data, which is, I was talking about the example of, we do a lot of work with Abbott, and they launched an app for Pediasure, and we were surprised to see that, the pace at which moms started downloading that app. We thought, look, this is even as the provider, we felt this is a little far-fetched idea. Why will someone download an app for, a tin of milk that they buy? Right. And it's amazing. We started with 1 country, we are in 10 countries with them now. And the downloads have been like pretty frictionless. There's a QR code on the tin of milk. People scan it, download, sign up. They scan it every time. It's crazy, right? So both sides, which is the consumer is also willing to get good content from you as a brand because they trust you, especially if you package it well. And, I think brands are also suddenly saying, look, I want more consumer data. I want to understand, how often is she buying? What else can I sell to her? If she drops off, if she's not scanned in this month, then I want to tell her that, look, you have few more months to go of Pediasure, your kid still needs it, right? So it's pretty interesting, to,
And Anish, it can happen that in apps, and that is the future, we will all have some permanent apps, which we always need, like my bank, which I bank with. But I believe there'll be some apps I will go in and out.
Correct.
I want to lose weight, I will download an app, I'll use it for 6 months and then erase it. And there'll be some apps which I call like they'll be candy apps. I will have them for a month, and then once the need is fulfilled, I'll do away. And brands should not mind that, as long as the experience is good and the value given by app in the time of interaction is high. So I think you will have a high download and higher value. I think brands have to recognize that perhaps maybe one brand will need to have a bigger app and a smaller app and a kind of a candy app, depending upon the experience you want to give. That's where perhaps we are going to. And as you know, websites have already begun, and they will have to behave more like apps and websites.
The interesting example is actually China. So in WeChat, they have this concept called mini programs, and we have a bunch of customers.
That's what I'm saying.
And so you don't need to download an app. You scan a QR code, so that sits in your WeChat. It's a mini program sitting on your WeChat, and so the brand has your data. You can engage with I think they have a limit that not more than 1 message a month or 2 messages a month or something like that from the brand to the consumer, unless they engage. Pretty nicely done, and I think WhatsApp is coming out with something like that. They do copy a lot of WeChat, so hopefully.
Ultimately, Anish, people like you will give technology, but we have to recognize fundamental human behavior and attitude will remain the same. So they will say, I want this permanently. I want this for short time. I don't want to use too much memory of my phone. Talk to me only when I want. And technology will have to evolve to help marketeers do that. And if we try and force our way in with what I call sales-oriented forceful messages, consumer now have a choice to reject you and to talk about you. And that is what I think we have to be sensitive to.
Right. As we are talking about the stickiness of brands, or as we are talking about the apps here, I want to get Sheena's views on this, as traditional advertisement or the advertising industry is facing a challenge as consumers are the mass approach to advertising has changed a lot, because as we were talking about social media influencers, people want to ape somebody who's maybe next door and not maybe a celebrity, because there is a kind of a disconnect somewhere. Maybe you want to look like a Shah Rukh Khan, but yeah, you can't afford that, so you want to become like a celebrity social media influencer. So how are brands or legacy brands trying to bring that connect?
Yeah, great question, Nazreen. So presently around the world, there is a surge in using social media in its various forms for marketing and advertising, and that trend is on the increase. Like you rightly said, there's a lot of non-celebrity related influencers who are a hit in this space, and I think the brands are engaging with a lot of these celebrities and non-celebrities to do this. I don't know if you noticed, there was this person who's known in China as the Lipstick Brother, who sold 1.9 billion in goods on the first day of Alibaba Group's annual shopping festival, like the Black Friday we have in Christmas or in the US, right? So, and he is a male selling lipstick, right, in China, right, for $1.9 billion on the first day alone of Alibaba Shopping Festival. So that's the kind of influence we are seeing in social media platforms for digital marketing. Overall, I think there are three categories. It's about digitally communicating and socializing with known others. So there's a trend where typically basis what you do, you're communicating on social media with your family and friends. So advertisers have given, they know what you like and dislike within a certain group. So you get pushed, ads or products or services that they know you like within a certain community. Then there is about your interactions with unknown others who share common interests. That can be from a LinkedIn platform or any other group discussion that's going on. And the third thing is where there is digital content, news. So we are seeing news, or you're reading some online papers or user generated product reviews, where there's a lot of information about you that is being gathered and can be used from marketing purposes as well, right? So that will continue to surge. And more what we're seeing is there is this digitally enabled social interactivity, right? I can go to TripAdvisor and book a travel, and data from there can be used by LinkedIn, and then into a food app, then into a music app, and so on and so forth, right? And into maybe a shopping app, right? Because I'm going into some country where I need cold clothing maybe, right? So all of this digitally interconnected social media, digital shopping and advertising activity is on the increasing trend as well, which is causing what we call today in modern day consumer living in an increasingly omni-social world, right? So that trend will continue to increase. But having said all of this, I do want to also mention that the concerns around three major concerns are actually also being found that they're eroding consumer trust as we do more and more of this social media marketing and all of that, right? And those concerns are related to basically personal information getting used, intellectual property and information security. And with more and more what's happening in the cyber world and cyber attacks, and with all of the cyber wars that is going on in present, there's also cases where people are trying to de-link their social media accounts, right? So while all of this is being done, I think what the brands will also have to focus on is addressing some of these concerns and specific actions and initiatives being taken to ensure greater transparency and trust as well.
Okay, Sheena, but just one more point that I wanted to ask Amey about this challenge of the trend of downtrading of pack sizes witnessed during the pandemic. Now we're talking of times where inflation is hurting people. So Amey, could this trend of down trading the pack size and whatever unit size we're talking about of any sector, could this trend get extended?
I think that's a very valid concern, Ashutosh. I think during pandemic we saw consumers at both ends, right? People down trading, and we also had people who had money who could afford those luxury items which they were not buying earlier. Given the current situation, where we see a surge in inflationary pricing, and all consumer goods companies, having to take price increases. I think there would be, to some extent, people preferring the lower unit pack. They may not go out of the categories, but clearly a need for economizing on the packs, and economizing on the kind of products they would want to use, right? So maybe if I have like 4 different types of shampoos, right, for example, I might choose one which is easier on the pocket, right? Or I might go to a lower SKU of the one which I prefer. Either one which will happen, but I do sense that this kind of behavior would happen in the short term, for a few quarters at least.
Okay, get the point. So what? Just before we just try and squeeze one more question to Jatinder. Jatinder, how does, you did mention some sense of what the future looks like specific to your industry. How do you see, keeping in mind the privacy concerns and some of the challenges of using the data, how do you see your particular industry, which has really exploded in the last 2 years, panning out in the next year or two?
So, Ashutosh, I think as companies, we have to be very respectful and careful of consumer data. Okay, today people, while they embrace you, they cut you very suddenly. They have a lot of options in the market. Unlike earlier times where I would be loyal to a brand, today loyalty is a very loose word. People just shift. So I think it's very important for us to look at data privacy. It's very important that we understand the need of the customer, what he would like to see and what he would not like to see. So if there's a DND on his phone, I as a company need to respect that DND and not bypass it through some other channel. See, because what happens is, in that zest of capturing the customer, we at times go overboard. And when we go overboard, the customer kind of just cuts off the brand. He doesn't understand or know who's causing this. He just sees the brand and says, I will not like it. Okay, so I think as companies, we need to be really sensitive. We need to understand what is a cold calling or a cold promotion versus an engagement. I think we need to move away from that and move more to engagement, where we give reasons for customers to reach out to us. And once they do that, then they are more acceptable when we go back to them. I think that's what we need to understand, and that's what we are doing as a company, where we have increased our engagement quotient through other mediums, where rather than just bombarding them with stuff, we engage with them and wait for them to come back to us, and then we go back to them with a specific answer. I think that's what we are trying to do, but we are being very careful with not kind of infringing on the privacy. And not only us, I think it's the regulatory environment is becoming very strong. So as most of the big companies are very careful. They don't even want to go that route. So besides we doing it, I think the government is also trying to ensure that those things are taken care of in a way.
Right. I think a very, very interesting conversation, and this can really go on for a long time, but we are really hard pressed on the time. Anish, your closing remarks, please.
Right. I think it was a very interesting, very engaging conversation. I think lots of thanks for all the real life examples from everyone. Right. So I think it was I love the conversation and the lot to take away from the conversation there. It'll be hard summarizing. So I think all of us agreed that content and engagement seem to be in the digital world seem to be real now, right? So there is a consumers are consuming content and engaging the way they want to, right? So whether it's through influencers, whether it's through engaging with the brand and responding, giving us as businesses ideas on what should we build, what else can we do, etc. I think there was a lot of conversation on personalization, and like convenience, right? So how can you personalize well, and that brings the whole angle of data and tools. And Vivek pointed out the very important thing of talent, right? The trioka of the three of them to help us personalize and deliver better, better to the end consumer. I think the fact is, I think we have another year of a cookie world. I think in an year, it'll be a cookie-less world once Android also moves away. Apple has already moved, so Android is probably going to move in the next year or so, right? So, and that will mean that it'll become, I think, quite important for brands to have their own zero-party data, as they call it, right? Zero-party data and their own properties and platforms to engage directly with consumers. And the consumer has given you a right, when they've shared their data. So I think they're going to be a lot more open to that kind of engagement as well. So interesting times. I think it's going to be a lot of crossovers of digital first brands moving to the offline world, traditional brands moving to the digital world. But I think, COVID is made sure omnichannel and digital are here to stay, I guess. So with that, thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.
What stays with me is the point that Sheena made about the gentleman, and I want to read about him. 1.9 billion lipsticks. So Sheena, you've given me some work to do as we close this. Thank you, everyone, for being with us on behalf of Nasreen and I. Thank you for taking out the time today.